get through some of the basic stuff. Welcome, everybody. Well, let's start like we always do. Could I have, as we're calling this meeting to order here, get through the business of having a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And can I have a motion to approve today's agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, terrific. Next, if we could have the, the public comment keeps coming in and we're populating our spreadsheet. Can commissioners acknowledge that they've been able to review the comments so far?
Yes.
Great. Okay, good. So at this point, I think let's go ahead and open it up to public comment. I think we have at least a couple of people who signed up in advance. Also, if you have that list, that would be really handy.
So we have a list, but only one person confirmed that they will speak today. And we have Andrew Hong on the list, and I see him as a participant. And then after that, we did not hear from confirmation from anybody else, but we had, you can raise your hand if you are here to provide comment.
Okay, let's start with Andrew.
Hi, can you all hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Andrew Hong. I'm a statewide coordinator for the Redistricting Justice for Washington Coalition. And we are also members of a sub-campaign, a Redistricting Justice for Seattle campaign, which is fighting for fair and equitable district lines in the city of Seattle City Council. We're a coalition of about a dozen organizations, including the Washington Bus, the Urban League of Seattle, ACRS, APACE, League of Women Voters in South King County, Washington Community Alliance, and other organizations. And we would just like to, introduce ourselves again. We'll be coming to more meetings going forward in this process, and also introduce our values. We have 4 kind of key redistricting values that we'd like to share with you all. One is transparency of data and process, making sure that all the data being used and also how the commission is making its decisions and going about its processes transparent to the public. 2, kind of along with that, giving equitable and accessible opportunity for community input for residents of the city of Seattle. Number 3, keeping communities of interest together, in particular our BIPOC communities, protecting the voting rights of people of color, as well as renters, working class communities, and young voters. And then 4, prioritizing people and communities over partisan interests in politicians. We have 2 questions today as a coalition that we wanted to ask. One, we would love to hear what are each of the commissioners and also the commission as a whole's like redistricting values. In particular, is this commission interested in valuing protecting the voting rights of people of color through majority and minority districts in this process? And our second question that we have is, as we prepare for our own like mapping sessions and gathering community feedback in our own communities, could the commission release or let us know like what are the specific hyperlocal questions that the commission is looking for public input in? For example, as District 2 expands northwards, is the
Wow, that's a powerful timer.
Yeah, right.
My goodness.
I was muted, but is it okay if I go on, if possible?
I think that we understood you were asking a second question about how to submit. Well, finish your second question, I guess. That's where you got cut off.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just like going forward, as the commission like has decisions to be made on redistricting lines, like big questions, like, is this, to be able to release that publicly, like on the website, or make sure that community organizations are aware of those questions, so we can then ask our community members, like, does Yes Third Terrace belong in District 2 or 3? And so then we can report back to the commission about those questions that you may have. So just to make sure that you as a commission, also us as organizations, are asking the right questions to community members so we can make the best publicly informed maps.
Thank you, Andrew. You know, as a commission, we worked together for your first question on developing a set of values. And Elsa, I don't know if you have those easily accessible to either pull up or share, but I think a lot of them align with you know, the values of your coalition. You know, transparency is our number one, and I think we're doing our best to make everything public, creating lots of ways for folks to share public comment, to communicate with us. So I think as far as transparency goes, we're looking at communities of interest. So, and getting as much public input as possible. And, you know, we are today actually going to be talking about our timeline and how we're going to be setting up public forums in each district to get specific, that kind of more granular specific comments. So stay tuned for that. I don't know if anybody else would like to respond. Okay, thank you. Who do we have next for public comment? Anybody, is there anybody else who didn't register but would like to give public comment? Nelson, maybe you could put, drop into the chat the values of the commission so that, oh, Andrew, are you trying to raise your hand?
No, actually, I was going to say that that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
I'll actually maybe just respond a little bit to Andrew's second question in terms of getting hyperlocal input. And so last week I had a chance to work with Mary Ulrich with our consulting team on drawing maps. And during that, we were able to upload the map that Steve Horvath had submitted in previous public comment to see, you know, what that looked like. So to the extent, Andrew, that the organizations that you're working with are able to put together maps and then submit those maps, I think that's super, that for, at least for me, I know that's going to be super useful, because thinking about exactly how to keep communities of interest together, that's absolutely going to be, I think, one of our most difficult jobs. So I'll be really interested to see how all the different organizations that you're working with would do that.
Yeah, and I guess I would add for Andrew and anybody else that's listening that it's super helpful. We had one memo that came to us that like said, for this community, these are the streets that we consider to be in that community of interest. So it was a pretty great level of detail. And then now that the maps are populated online with street level data and you can really zoom in and see it, we can get to that level. So thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. That's a helpful response. And the maps are a good way to do that. And then for folks who, you know, some people are more visual, some people are, you know, communicate by writing, some people verbally, but that level of detail is super helpful.
Yes, thank you for that feedback. And we are definitely planning to be drawing our own maps in community and sending them to the commission. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Okay, I guess the next thing on the agenda, do any of the commissioners have any potential conflicts of interest to disclose? Okay. And then I guess we are at the GIS update.
Wow, that was fast. Thank you, commissioners. And thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, commissioners, and I hope you're having a good day. I don't have much at all for you today. We are currently working on the narrative writing, as you know, and I apologize for the delay on that. We've been busy and had some vacations, some kids on spring break and their parents wanting to take time off. I hope that sounds familiar to you. But we are working on that, and we are also underway with 3 of you and soon to be 4 of you on some sessions, interactive sessions, one-on-one with each of you. And I've heard some good feedback from that from my staff and also from a couple of you. So if there's anything that I can do to help facilitate those or make them go better, I'm interested in hearing about it. We will jump at the opportunity, and the next Commissioner Shaw, we're going to try and get you going by the end of this week. And that is my report.
Dennis, I do have a question. Well, 2 questions. One, is it helpful for us? I'm remembering, let's see, back to our last meeting, we were talking about updating the population numbers for the incarcerated population. And if I was understanding email communications correctly, I want to make sure that Dave's redistricting is already using the updated numbers. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. However, the numbers that we have included on the interactive website that we built need to be updated still. So thank you for calling my attention back to that, and I will make sure that that occurs.
Great. Are there any other questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Nichols?
Dennis, having looked at those numbers, do you think it will throw any of the districts out of line with the 1%?
I do not.
Okay.
Yep. I can't remember what the highest change in any given block was, but it's definitely not going to exceed the 1% threshold.
Great.
So
Thank you.
maps can stay as is. So that's great. Okay, well, we're flying through things here today. Let's move on. Thank you, Dennis. Let's move on to the public forum discussion that we've all been waiting for. Also,
There goes all our momentum.
Oh yeah, don't get excited. Okay, I think Elsa has a presentation, right? Just to remind everybody, we've sent it out by email in advance, but
yeah,
let's have a conversation and then try to get to a decision today.
Yeah, let me put this up as I have been having lots of computer issues today. Let's see. I think this is it. Does it say we're presenting 3 options? Is that what you're?
Yep, that's what I see.
Okay, so we tried this, and you should all have received it. Tried to take in consideration the all comments that we got. So we have 3 options: A, B, and C. Try to put some pros and cons there too, and the main differences, which are when the commissioner is hearing from the public before or after they do the final draft. I looked at this carefully. And they all remember we have to follow not only city charter, but also state law to make sure that we're in compliance. And so that's why it gets tricky to make sure that we are. Just a clarification that in general, all of our meetings are in compliance with, they're all public. Most of our meetings, including this, have notice, they're open for the public, and they have an agenda and people can participate in them. But I will go into this options. So option A is 1 set of 7 public forums with 1 draft map and 1 public forum with a final draft. So in this option, commissioners must work towards one map in April at the latest in order to release a draft by May, when the seven public forums will start. So working towards one map from the commission will have to happen before those 7 public forums.
Why would it be April though?
Because if we want to do the public forums with, if we want to come to the public forums with one draft
Yeah,
in May, then April is the only month we have to be able to do that work.
and the May deadline is based on what?
Wanting to do the public forums May, June, and July.
Okay, but if we wanted to come to one map, it might take us more than an hour. It might take us a series of conversations to get to a draft agreed upon map. I think that saying that that has to be done in April is an artificial constraint. I think we could take into May with that work and then compress the public forums into June and July. So just to comment on that.
I'm taking notes of those comments. So the pros for this that we see, and you can also give your thoughts on this, is that the public will have a specific proposal to react to. So coming to the 7 forums with one draft gives the public the opportunity to react to one proposal, or however the proposal the commission gets to. The cons is that commissioners will have to narrow one map before receiving public comment at the forums and make decisions without specific input. The option B is having 2 sets of 7 public forums. The first set will be coming to the public with 4 maps, and the second set will have just 1 map, and all of this will happen before the end of the summer. In this option, commissioners will have to work towards 1 map in early June, and to release a proposal of 1 map in the second half of June. And by June and July, the second set of public meetings will start. I'm sorry, there's a mistake right there. Set of public forums will start. So working towards 1 map will happen after commissioners hear from the public in 7 forums, and will present 1 draft in the second set of 7 forums. The pros of this is the commissioners will have the opportunities to hear specific and general input from the public before their final proposal. The cons is that there's less time to do public education and outreach, potentially less quality participation. It would be difficult to schedule 14 public forums that require quorum from commissioners during April and May. I want to make a note that, and also for the public, that independently of these public forums, we are continuing to meet with different groups in the community, and commissioners are listening to and learning from the public of different issues concerning the districts and the maps as we have them right now. Option C would be 1 set of 7 public forums with 4 maps and 1 final public forum for all districts with a final draft. Commissioners must work towards 1 map by, in this option, the commissioners must work towards 1 map by the end of July, release a draft by August, and have public forum in early September. Working towards 1 map happens after commissioners hear from the public in 7 public forums. The difference between option A and option C is just calendar when this happens. And in option A, commissioners hear from the public after narrowing to 1 map. And for this one, they hear from it after. The pros is commissioners hear public input through public forums before deciding on 1 map. And the cons is that this gets released in the summer when it's busy for most people. So I'm going to now send back to you, Commissioner Shah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that the the difference, just to clarify, between option A and C is that in option A scenario, we get to one map and then have the public forums. In option C, we have the public forums and hear the specifics from the districts, then get to one map and then have one more public forum. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understands. So let's have a discussion. Commissioner O'Sullivan has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think all these timetables have been constructed given the assumption that we're either not going to work in August, or we're going to do very little work in August because maybe there's going to be fewer folks around or available. And I think Commissioner Shaw, maybe you've indicated that you will have limited or no availability in August. But I wonder if we're able to get a quorum of commissioners to, so for instance, under option B, if we were going to do 2 sets of public forums, and if the second set of public forums could extend into August, I guess my question is, are other commissioners aware of their schedule enough to know whether or not we would be able to get a quorum of commissioners for public forums occurring in August, so that we didn't have to compress the time period so much?
Just to clarify, is that in addition to the regular weekly meetings we're doing, or would our official business be taking place at some of those meetings as well? Elsa?
I mean, I guess my thought would be that during those periods, our primary business is going to be the public forums. I don't know that we'll, I mean, but yeah, it's just, I mean, I think this is kind of up to us, right?
I'd say that it's a little difficult to predict because I thought right now we'd be focusing on listening sessions and we wouldn't have a meeting every week, but we've ended up having meetings every week. But that could certainly, I mean, I think for all of these options, the times can be adjusted slightly, but the main things to discuss is, do we want to have 14 public forums? Do people feel strongly about that? Do people want to hear public input before narrowing down to one map in a more specific way through district conversations? You know, I think we should decide on sort of those main factors and then maybe adjust the timelines as needed. My availability in July and August, I'm supposed to have a sabbatical, which is not going to be totally tuned out, obviously, because I'll be participating, you know, as much as I can, but I don't know when things are scheduled, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Commissioner Nichols.
So I don't think it's a surprise that I prefer options other than option B. So we have been taking public comment at every meeting. In fact, last meeting, we took public comment at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. So the public, at least public who are interested in the process, have significant opportunity for input. We're receiving written, I've received a couple of emails, which I forwarded to staff to share with the rest of the commission. I'm sure you're getting similar comments. So at least some access to us, the public has avenues. So I think one set of 7, which is what is provided in the charter, yes, we need to meet the charter requirements, particularly when we're doing them virtually. I don't see an advantage to 7 more geographically based virtual meetings. I think that we need to have significant input. I think it's more valuable for us to have that significant input once there's a draft map a draft map. I know if I'm handed a menu that has 17 beers on it, it's harder to make a decision than if I'm handed one that has 1 or 2 or 3. And I think for the public to be able to focus on a draft map in coming up with their specific comments, I think is doing them a service. It's harder work for us. As Elsa says, we would have a limited amount of time to do that, but I do think it provides a value added for the public. That said, if the commission feels strongly about doing the public forums up front, I think the idea of a final public forum once we've come to a map is a good one. At that point, having one in each of the old districts to talk about what the new districts are going to be, I think doesn't add an awful lot of value. One general comment session, I think, would allow good public comment focused on our final draft and give the public really strong opportunity for comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. So I'm reading that to mean that if you were to rank A, B, and C, A is your first preference and C is your second preference?
Yes, just because of the one map, a draft that the public could focus on, I think it's stronger. But C, I think, works fine as well, because the public would have a comment opportunity on the final map.
Thank you. Ariel.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt the flow because it sounds like there's some good momentum here. I just want to maybe set out a couple of other considerations to keep in mind when you're coming up with preferences. One is, thank you, Commissioner Nichols, for bringing up the issue of virtual in-district meetings. At this time, we don't know the landscape for the governor's proclamation, what it will be in the future regarding a return to in-person meetings. So as you're thinking about in-district forums, bear in mind that the governor's proclamation that allows virtual meetings may be rescinded, and we may need to have an in-district component. So keep that in mind. The other thing I just want to put on everyone's dashboard to consider is and I can't make this decision for you. It's going to be something you decide for yourselves, each one of you, how much time is reasonable if after you narrow down to one draft to work off of and present to the public. I just want to flag for you that you want to leave enough time to be able to meaningfully respond to any kind of notification or challenge to the legality of this map or validity of this map. There may be entities or people who are raising concerns about the map in a legal way, in a legal context, in the form of notifying you that this would entail a legal challenge if it gets passed. And I want to be able to flag for you that you're going to want to have enough time to discuss that and assess whether you want to change the map or come up with solutions. If that comes up, I don't think, I fully expect that this commission is going to come up with a map that is legally sound and thoroughly representative of our great city. However, as an attorney who's always very risk averse, I do want to just flag for you, give yourselves enough time. Thanks.
Really appreciate that. I do have a question. Are you saying that it's possible that we'll be required to do in-person meetings that don't also have a virtual component to it? Do you think that they would be hybrid meetings, or that we would somehow have to have them all in person without any virtual option?
At this point, I don't know. But in terms of what, everything is on the table. I'm going to say at this point. Everything's on the table. Yeah. So, but I think the commission should fully prepare to be present for in-person meetings for the possibility that you're going to be present for in-person meetings. After all, that is the spirit of the charter.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
So I guess one real quick thought on Ariel's comment, which is that I think in all of these, we get down to one map by August at the latest. So we would have August, September, October to address any legal issues that are raised. And you know, it's entirely possible that somebody could raise legal issues with our proposal in early November, but we have to, you know, pass a map by mid-November. So we would have to try to account for that in the very last minute. I like Commissioner Nichols. I don't think my preferences are much of a secret. I've been advocating for option B this whole time, and so I think a couple of considerations with option B. One is that we don't have to have every single commissioner present at every single forum, as long as we have a quorum, which is 3 at all 14 public forums. You know, we would be complying. I also think we can push the public forums into August so that we have more time to address the entire process. My second choice would be option C. I really think it's going to be valuable for us to go to the public and to go to all 7 districts with 4 proposals so that somebody can say, I like this one, I don't like that one. I think we're going to get more valuable input that way than we are going with just one map. So my rank order preference would be B and then C, and I'm kind of opposed to A. That's so those are my thoughts on these options.
Thank you. Commissioner Juarez, could we ask you to respond to what your choices would be?
Yeah, sorry, I was really trying to weigh B and C, and I think particularly with Ariel's contribution around a potential legal challenge, like just how much time that takes and what both the public will expect from us during that period, as well as what is our responsibility. I think my first preference right now is C, only because, you know, I think many of us have run town hall and organizing moments where we're talking with the public, and my concern, it's a smaller concern. My concern with B is that we don't get the richness of focused feedback that we would in other options. And I think after talking with staff and other folks, you know, responding to 4 maps as a member of the public is a lot. And I think about my own experience providing comment and feedback in redistricting processes, both in the past and from this year. So C is my preference. B would be acceptable. A is not one I'm particularly interested in.
Okay, thank you. My preference is also for option C. I like the spirit of having 14 public forums, but having done a few of the listening sessions, I think the listening sessions to prepare community for putting information forward in the forums is also just as valuable, and also recognizing that, you know, we only have 2 dedicated staff working on this Seattle redistricting quite large initiative, which is much less than King County or the state. So I also want to be mindful of my theory in life is like, do what you do well and try not to spread too thin. I spread myself thin all the time, but for the most part, I try to, you know, just really, if I'm doing something, put everything into it. So I guess in that spirit, C is my top choice as well. I think it sounds like, you know, option A, is, you know, Commissioner O'Sullivan was, you know, use the language opposed. So I'd want to take that off the table. Commissioner Nichols favored option C as his second. So I think we're going with option C at this point, unless anybody raises a significant opposition to that. And I think we can work on, you know, massaging the dates if necessary. Another point on here that could happen for any of the options, but for option C, I would love to, now that things are a little safer, if we can, to have, you know, it could be online or in person, like an all-day meeting where we can really, after the public forums, we can really figure out, work together for however long it takes and get down to one map, and really concentrate on that. So I like that piece of option C as well. But unless I hear any, you know, major reservations, and of course we don't have Commissioner Malaba here, then I think we'll go with option C as the most supported. Commissioner Nichols?
I will support that happily. It's not my first choice, but I think it works well for the public and for the commission.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Move that we adopt option C as the commission's consensus.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see. What's next on our, outreach update?
Thank you, everybody. You should all have received the events. This week, we just had one event with the Fremont Community Council. I wanted to call out to the commissioners have been present to give your impressions of this meetings. I am working with different groups who are wanting to have presentations, and we're trying to find the times and for them to have enough time to advertise it, and working on different groups. So I'd like to see if you guys have comments of what you've heard, commissioners, what you have heard in this sessions, and if they've been helpful, and then I'll just give you more of an of what's coming up.
I can start. Lots of people want to talk. EJ, go ahead.
Sorry, mine is quick and it's a little bit to the side. One request that I have for these public comments is that we, Elsa, is that we put on the website an explanation of how groups were asked to host, and just so the public knows that we're not favoring something over something else. That was some feedback I had gotten. So yeah, sorry to interrupt this flow.
Oh, no, that's great. And I can, yes, I can explain that right now, and then we can also put it out there. So we did a massive email to all of our lists and groups that we know at the Department of Neighborhoods with all of our arms on outreach and engagement in division for the department. We also reached out to every single person who has sent us an email about redistricting, who were involved with the census work. And so our first ask was, would you like to host a session? And so we're responding as they're coming to folks who said they would. They wanted to right away. We're also right now have a good group of 8 community liaisons who have gotten the training, and they're going out to different organizations, trying to find the time to see when are we going to have these sessions. And yes, so the first one was from us to reach out to the public from the contacts that we have and that we've had in the last few years from all the engagement we've done.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Nichols?
So this was the third session that I've participated in. It was somewhat smaller, a dozen participants perhaps. So under Zoom, we were able to see everybody, which I found helpful. At least one of the earlier ones, you couldn't see anybody but the 2 or 3 organizers. This was the first one where the question about future growth did not come up. At two of the previous ones, people said, well, we're getting lots of new apartments. Shouldn't we get, some credit for that? This was a more sophisticated group, I think, in terms of being sort of redistricting aware and perhaps engaged. One of the participants helped to draw the earlier boundary lines that were in the charter. So that kind of sophistication, I think, was higher here than at the two previous ones I had attended. Fremont, this is a Fremont Community Neighborhood Council meeting, is split now between districts 3 and 6. And it seemed like there was some thinking maybe it's good we're split because we have 2 council members we can go to, or maybe we want to have all of Fremont as the center of one district. So I think they're going to have further conversations about that. I suspect we'll hear more. Again, I think Elsa did a great job of outlining our process, who we are and why we're going about this process. So I thought it was a helpful meeting. It was a little bit different than the previous 2 that I'd been to, and I think that's good.
I attended that meeting as well. So that was the Fremont Public Association, and then also the Lake City group one as well. And what was and again, I guess Elsa did great presentation on both of them. I think she covers all the bases, so that's great information for the community to then be able to start providing the more detailed public comment. The difference between the 2, I think in the Lake City meeting, there was already some discussion about, wow, this one of the maps cuts our district and separates Lake City totally in 2, and there was discussion about that, and it was really useful for me to be able to focus in on one neighborhood and hear from that neighborhood. So it was already starting to provide some feedback, and I'm sure they'll continue to meet and provide us with more. So that was great, and I hope to get that in every neighborhood almost. And then the Fremont one as well, it was a discussion about, well, would Aurora be a better line for us, or would Stoneway be a better line? And that kind of detail, then for us, we can zoom in the maps now. You can really zoom in with the different options and look at the streets. And so that kind of level, I think, was super useful. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah, thank you both for attending all of those. And I look forward for everyone else to join the next ones. One thing that was helpful from last night was that they said, well, thank you for this. Now we need time for us to discuss this. Like, thank you, goodbye, let us discuss, and then we come back to you. I think that that's the process that we want for folks to, okay, this is now on us, and then we'll come back to you. I keep hearing from the different groups. I've been doing different informational meetings with organizers, so they can bring their community groups. And some of the things that I've heard that they want to know from the community is, and it was mentioned earlier, what are the values of the commission, and more in terms of what are the values of, are they willing to commit to keeping communities of interest together, and are you more interested in issues that are specifically related to an area or not? And so what I will do, and what we're going to be focusing on in the next meeting, is how are we going to organize the public comments so you can read it and it's helpful for you to reach out to. I've gotten some requests to meet with you individually or have presentations individually. I have had people ask me if people can come to specific presentations and they have interest in one or another. So I've reached out to you to see if you can come and give basically the presentation about what redistricting is to these groups. And so the interest is there. We're moving forward on scheduling all of these sessions. And so what I will do now is incorporate all of the the new dates for this outline, for this new timeline that we have. I will incorporate that to the meetings. One thing I wanted to share with you is that, so the way that we are working with language access right now is that we are in the process of uploading names and contact information for if people want to have specific discussions and conversations in language, they can do that. We want to present in language when possible and work with you to be part of that discussion. We also have programmed for April 8th, a second training with Dave's Redistricting app and himself, and we're going to be doing a training on how to create communities of interest maps, and that's going to be from 12 to 1. And we're going to be using 2 communities of interest as examples, probably Yesler Terrace and another one that I need to confirm with the group to see if they want to use it as an example, so they can have an expert working on that. The feedback I've gotten a lot from meeting with some of our GIS staff is that, and also from conversations I've had with staff from other redistricting processes, is that maps are super important to get, but also a lot of the most valuable comments that they heard were from people just sharing their stories at a public meeting, and their stories and specific feedback. So I think there's some hands up.
I just wanted to note, so we're hearing, I think we're hearing from a number of different groups, please keep this community together, or please keep that community together. And what that means in a practical sense, right, is don't put the line here, right? Because if you put the line here, then that means that our community is in 2 different districts on both sides of this line. And so one of the reasons that I think maps are so important is because if you don't put the line here, then the line is somewhere else. And then that impacts the other districts around it. So for example, Steve Horvath was the individual who said, we'd like to keep all the downtown neighborhoods together. So these are the downtown neighborhoods. So he then went and drew a map which keeps the downtown neighborhoods together. And in order to do that, he had to create different lines in other parts of the city. So if District 1 doesn't have any of downtown, then you have to find another way to expand District 1. And the way he did it was by putting part of South Beacon Hill into District 1, meaning that now you have South Beacon Hill separated from North Beacon Hill. So now you're keeping downtown together, but you're splitting Beacon Hill, right? And so I think it's a super valuable exercise for anybody and everybody who says, please keep our neighborhood together. Okay, that's great input. There's a lot of people giving that similar input. So to the extent that you're giving that input, where should the lines go, and how is that going to affect the other communities that are necessarily going to be affected by putting the lines near them? And so I just once again want to encourage anybody who is hoping to, suggest that their community should be kept together in one district to submit a map so that we can know what that would look like and how that would affect other folks.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes, so somewhat logistical question or point. Our legal counsel has advised that she would be more comfortable if there were no more than 2 of us at any of these sessions. So far, I have not said a word at any of the 3. I have been an observer. And I don't know about Lake City, but I would guess probably at Lake City, Madam Chair, you were an observer. So I don't necessarily see why we couldn't have more than 2. For instance, REWA is coming up, and I would be very interested in hearing the concerns that are raised at that meeting, but 2 commissioners have already indicated their interest. So I don't want in any way to impinge upon their freedom to do that. I think they should be able to, but I think we're losing something if we have this artificial barrier when in fact we are not conducting the meetings. They are being conducted by neighborhood organizations, and we are for the most part simply observing them. We're not shaping their conversation. So I guess I'd like to know what is the downside? Who's going to object to a 3rd or 4th or even 5th commissioner observing a community meeting where this is under discussion? Thank you.
Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Well, and just another suggestion is if we have meetings, and I agree with Commissioner Nichols that I think I know I personally would be interested in attending the REWA meeting. So maybe if we can provide sufficient public notice that it becomes a public meeting, then there wouldn't be any problem with that. I don't think we necessarily yet have a time and date picked for that particular meeting, but if we're able to provide enough public notice, then hopefully that'll work out.
Ariel?
Thanks, Commissioner O'Sullivan, and thanks, Commissioner Nichols. I just want to reiterate my concern was it's not about having the meetings at all or having the sessions at all, I should say. It's about whether the sessions, if enough commissioners are showing up, that there's an appearance that it is a meeting, and therefore the open public meeting protocols should be followed. That's the only concern. So by all means, there's no reason why there can't be more commissioners. If there is a perception, however, that the commissioners are participating in a meeting, and there are more than 2 commissioners, fine, have the meeting, but we should just add in those open public meeting procedures to it.
I do have a suggestion. If the meetings are recorded, we could go back and watch them later on to get the public comment. At the Lake City meeting, I said a few words, but nothing, that didn't have to be said. I think Elsa could have said the same thing. Commissioner Juarez?
Thank you. Does the Open Public Meetings Act impact in a way how the forums would be conducted? I mean, would it dampen engagement or substantively change people's ability to be most candid and free in that moment? Like, what actually changes? Is it just, it's recorded, there would be minutes?
I think that's hard to say, Commissioner, because each of these community organizations conducts its business in a different way. So how it would change I don't think it would change at all their ability to have a candid conversation. As was mentioned, the Fremont people wanted us to go so that they could have their breakdown of what they had heard.
Sure.
So I think the community organizations feel free to either have that in front of us or not and invite us to leave. So our public forums obviously will be public meetings and will be conducted under the auspices of the Open Public Meetings Act. But these are community organizations that are choosing to have us participate at their meeting so that they're better informed. And I think that there's no harm in commissioners coming. I think it sends a good message when 1 or 2 or 3 or more of us are there to listen. We're not making the presentations, Elsa is on our behalf. I just don't see the downside of that, and unless there is some particular risk that we're taking by being willing to go and listen, I would prefer that Elsa allow more than 2 of us to go to meetings if more wish to.
So I wholeheartedly agree. I just wanted to get a handle on the actual process. What are the mechanisms that we have to do as we show up and what impacts those would be, but I'm all in favor. I would love for us to figure out a way where we can all show up if that works for us and if we have interest in hearing. So yeah.
I mean, would that require us to post, it's their meeting that we're, Elsa, she's gonna answer for us.
Yes, I just want to make sure, and we had this conversation also with Ariel, I believe last week, where what we are doing right now is we are making sure that all these meetings that you are attending or we're invited to go to are public. And so we're posting it 24 hours before, and it says at least what the event is, and it has where the place is going to be. And the difference is that it's not a public meeting for us because we're not keeping public comment, officially recording it. But everything else is people can attend, people can know where it is, advance, and it's public. Now, the difference we can't really record the sessions because they're not ours, but when we are hosting them, and that's when we're hosting them, we can ask and we can request. I actually just requested for some of them who I know were recording if we could be can have the recording, and they say yes. Some of them do record it, some of them don't. So we may have some differences, but what I can do is I can ask moving along for all of the public meetings, all of the listening sessions that are able to, if they can record the piece where we present and we hear back, and then we save that as the requirement from the commission.
Because otherwise it's their meeting and we would have to make it a public meeting, post it on our website with the agenda 24 hours. And we're kind of invited to go into their space. So making it a public meeting seems a little bit awkward to me. Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Yeah, so we're entering a space that's, I think, slightly different than what was envisioned by the Open Public Meetings Act, right? So the Open Public Meetings Act envisions people congregating in a physical space, and so when you have a quorum of a body convening in a physical space, but you don't tell the public about it, then that group of people could potentially, outside the view of the public, come to an agreement about something that's happening. But what we're talking about is appearing or attending an event online where we're not in the same physical space, and even I wonder if Ariel or anyone else could research authority for the proposition that it wouldn't be a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act if members of a commission like ours were to observe but not participate in or communicate with other members of the commission during the event. If that sort of a scenario possibly wouldn't be governed by the Open Public Meetings Act, because we wouldn't be meeting, we would just be observing.
Happy to do that. I think that's what we should do. Is I'll go and take a look at what the contours is about transacting government business and what that means for us in terms of showing up to the commission, showing up to these sessions as observers.
Thank you. Great suggestion, Commissioner Sullivan. Elsa, anything else on?
No. In the meantime, they keep coming, and apologies if they're not neatly, they just get changed last minute or adding it. There was one request to do one in-person session. I wanted to mention it for April 21st. We're trying to figure it out if we're going to be doing it or not. And if we do, we may do it in person at City Hall if it's possible. We're trying to figure it out if it's happening. This will be getting together with people, probably native urban residents of Seattle. And so if we do it, it would be at I don't know. We don't even know if that's possible yet to do it at the city hall, but if we do, it would be a big space, and we will have the option of making it hybrid as well, because it would be probably in the middle of the day, and we'll have food and all of that stuff that I miss so much. So we'll let you know and keep you posted. But there will be the option of making it hybrid for sure.
Thanks for keeping us posted on that. Okay, well, that's great. We did say that we would give opportunity for a second time of public comment if anybody else wasn't able to make it earlier. So I'm just going to quickly open that up again to see if anyone else has. I don't see anybody.
It looks like Joanna Cullen has her hand raised.
Joanna, do you have public comment? Can start the timer if so.
Yes.
There?
So,
Oh, there she is. Okay.
hi. So my, if you go with option C, which it seems like you are, my main comments are about how making sure the timeline for that final draft map is well in advance of any public meeting, the whole big public meeting, so that people can discuss it. And then how, once that draft map is published and you just have one big meeting, people will want to comment on it. And so I suppose they can come to these meetings and comment on it prior to the big public meeting, but sort of how you're going to respond to, and a timeline of how you're going to respond to those coming to the final map. Because it seems like people will need a lot of time to sort of think about that final draft that you bring out. That's my main concern, is having a good timeline for public input and how you're going to respond to that public input.
Okay, thank you. We will take that into consideration. I think we're doing our best to collect as much public input and giving people lots of ways to contribute their thoughts, and plenty of time to do so. And we want to have all of our work done well in advance of the deadline. Thank you. Okay, our next meeting.
So it looked like Andrew Hong also had his hand raised.
Didn't he speak earlier, Commissioner?
Yeah.
I think those were the two people with their hands raised. Okay, our next meeting will be April 5th. So that's next Tuesday, same place, same time. The following week is spring break. I won't be available. I'm hoping that we won't have, for Seattle Public Schools, hoping that we won't need a meeting, but if we do, I will need someone to graciously step in as chair. So hopefully we'll try to be efficient and keep our give everyone time to get all the, participate in the listening sessions. That was our plan. Commissioner Sullivan?
I will also be out of town that week, so
Okay.
I second Commissioner Shaw's request to not have a meeting that week.
Thank you.
I don't know, EJ, you and I could probably get a lot done.
You guys can get a lot done, right? Ariel has her hand up.
Everybody. So I took the opportunity to ping Gary Smith, our resident Open Public Meetings Act guru, to check in on this question about the open public meetings of these listening sessions. As long as we're giving appropriate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act, and Elsa has confirmed that we are, as long as we're taking some form of minutes, it should be all right. That should be enough to consider an open public meeting, and then you can have as many people come as you want.
Commissioner O'Sullivan?
Yeah, so I think the question was, would there be a scenario where it's not governed by the Open Public Meetings Act because we don't have 3 or more members of the body participating in it? They're just simply observing it online, right? Would would that fall outside the bounds of what is governed by the Open Public Meetings Act, and therefore we don't, like, there wouldn't even be a notice requirement and such. I
Got
think
it.
that was
Okay, so I can certainly follow up on that. I guess I might pose another question though, is that a question that's still that still matters to the commission, is knowing that there's still an obstacle in having these be considered open public meetings with the notice and minutes requirement only?
Well, yeah, because I think there might be a scenario where there's an organization that doesn't necessarily want their agenda and meeting broadly publicized, but would appreciate 3 members observing. And so I think there's a question about whether or not that scenario is governed by the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay, I'll follow up on that.
I agree with that. Thank you.
And very quickly, maybe for staff, as a part of our charge, we are asked to provide recommendations for future redistricting processes. This seems like a thing worthy of introducing for the next set and to the council of, like, there are state law changes to accommodate our listening to the public.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good week,
Thanks.
everyone.
Talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.